I think many people who dive in have aspirations of climbing that, corporate ladder. And the way that I've thought about it for a very long time, years now, almost 20 years, is it's three phases to a career. Now, different people might have different things that they've read about or applied. But for me, it's you go through the first stage is survive. The second stage is to thrive. And these are all emotional, psychological stages, right? And then the last stage is to create, where you get to a point where you so up there that you can put other people on, or you can guide people at that point in time. And that's the holy grail to me.
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor, and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
Welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast, a safe space where we discuss all matters related to race, especially race in corporate America. I'm your host, TonyTidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Reed.
And again, we are live at WNHU 88.7 on the Richter Dial, University New Haven's podcast studio. Want to thank them for hosting a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Actually, the students will be back next week, so we have a lot of people running around here. So we look forward to seeing them. Go Chargers.
We also want to thank and help to appreciate our partners at CodeMMagazine.com. Code Magazine, where the mission is saving the Black family by first saving the Black man. That's CodeMMagazine2M.com.
Code M. Check them out. So today, Chris and I are going to explore the challenging journey up the corporate ladder, focusing on personal and widespread hurdles. We'll discuss imposter syndrome and the effect on professionals in corporate America. We're going to debunk myths around corporate hierarchies and the limitations of rigid job roles that stifle creativity. We'll also examine workplace politics, revealing the patterns that influence leadership advancement and how subjective criteria often change the standards of success. So, my brother, you ready to dive into the corporate leadership, corporate ladder topic?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. This is something we both been working in corporate America for a long period of time. So you ready to tackle it?
And give it our perspective.
All right, buddy, let's talk about it.
All right. The one thing, I think that when you are going to do something, you want to do your best at it, and that includes your career. And so if you get into this area of corporate America, I think many people who dive in have aspirations of climbing that, corporate ladder. And the way that I've thought about it for a very long time, years now, almost 20 years, is it's three phases to a career. Now, different people might have different things that they've read about or applied. But for me, it's you go through the first stage is survive. The second stage is to thrive. And these are all emotional, psychological stages, right? And then the last stage is to create, where you get to a point where you so up there that you can put other people on, or you can guide people at that point in time. And that's the holy grail to me, is when you can create lives and opportunities for those who are developing and coming up under you, in the same route. But it's a tough climb, and understanding how and when and where to move and position and attack and fall back and all of that, it becomes very tough, especially when you come from a certain environment, or you come from a certain personality perspective, or you seem somewhat out of your element depending on how you were raised. I say all the time, Ivy League schools teach leaders. Like you go to Harvard to become in charge of something. You don't go to Harvard to become an employee. You know what I mean? They don't really have that class, right? You learn how to lead employees. You go to other schools to learn how to fit in and make it work, or whatever the case may be. So those of us who didn't have that silver spoon, or didn't have that education geared at making you in charge of others, you have to find your way. And it's a personality mix. It's a kind of figuring it out. Earlier I was talking to some brothers and talked about it like being double Dutch, right? You rocking back and forth, knowing when to jump in, without getting hit in the face with the rope, right? And so in that regard, I think that, I know you and I had a candid conversation recently where your personality, being someone just naturally who you are, the military, all these other things, kind of helped you go in there with your chest out and was like, I can do this. and I came in a different in the side door, right? You came in the front door. I came in the service edge. I came in the side door and just wanted to figure it out and survive. And so I think that would be important for us to talk about those two perspectives and how we navigated our careers to end up meeting each other ultimately, which was a wonderful thing. But the reality of it is, it's more than one way to skin a cat. And you and I are two, examples of different perspectives on things as it relates to that corporate hierarchy, that dynamic of gaining or ascending up the ladder. And I think it's a valuable conversation to be had.
Yeah, well, number one, thank you for that, my brother. I really appreciate it. So right off the bat, so I'm gonna there's you said a lot to kick
Mhm.
us off, which I really
Mhm.
appreciate, right?
Mhm.
Some of it I agree with, some of it I disagree with, right?
Mhm.
But before I
Mhm.
get into that, I want to back up because you said there's three levels. You
Mhm.
said there's survive.
Survive,
What was the second level?
thrive,
Thrive, and then the
yeah,
third level was what?
create.
Okay, so just do me a favor, do everybody a
Yes, sir.
favor. When
Yeah.
you say survive, like what do you mean?
So you get into this job. So this is think about young you. Anybody that was a young you get into this job and you want to show that you belong. You want to show that you're gonna make it past this 90-day probationary period. You want to get vested in the 401. You want to get vested in the 401k. You just want to make sure that this works for you as much as it works for them. And that's really you want to survive the newness of things. You want to figure it out. You want to understand how things go around here and you want to see where you could apply your best self to the situation. To me, that's level one. And it depends on if you feel equipped or capable of that role, or if you got hooked up, or whatever the case may be to get in there. You might have a little more paranoia as it relates to your survival. But everybody that starts something new should start with a baseline of having something to hang their hat on, prove, give the first impression, whatever the case may be in that regard.
Yeah, so that makes total sense. So the word survive
Mm-hmm.
it is a tough word, okay? Just from my
For you.
perspective,
Yes, there we
right?
go.
In
Yeah.
terms of I got a new job, I just want to survive.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. So, but I like the part where you said, "Hey, you want to fit in, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
want to come in and prove yourself. You
Mm-hmm.
want to learn the landscape because that's
Mm-hmm.
really what it's about, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
learning the landscape. I think
Mm-hmm.
the majority of people when they start a new job at Xerox or
Mm-hmm.
Warner Media
Mm-hmm.
or CBS
Mm-hmm.
or whatever company, they're excited. They have their eyes are wide open, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
coming in. They feel they're going to make a mark. They want to. They're ambitious. They want to grow, right? They're not looking to stay stagnant, right? So I think for the most part everybody, not everybody, but majority of people start that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, yes, you have to learn the landscape. It reminds me when I went in the army, okay, when I went
Okay.
in basic training.
Okay.
And I remember we were in basic and they took us out to see some movie, some military movie, I can't remember. And because the drill sergeants wasn't all over us, we started acting up a little bit in the theater, okay? Because the lights are out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, trust me, up to this point, you have no freedom, right? These guys are all
Right.
over you,
Right.
right? But we
Right.
get in the theater, we acting a fool, okay? At least not to the standards of what we were doing, right?
Right.
So as soon as the movie is over, they get us in formation, marches back. And I remember the first sergeant saying something. He was like, "Look, we're not joining you. You're joining us."
Right.
Okay. So in other
Right.
words, you're gonna follow these rules or
Right.
you ain't gonna be here.
Right.
Okay. And so it's no different when you go to corporate America. There's rules,
Mm-hmm.
there's things that you need to learn, all right, for you to become successful. Going in the
Mm-hmm.
military, I couldn't be successful doing my own thing. I had to
Mm-hmm.
follow the military rules. It's a little bit different because it's a lot more rigid, stuff of that
Very. Yep.
nature versus going into
Yep.
corporate America. But I just
Yep.
think the majority of people who go in, they're excited. They want to do well, but they need to learn the landscape. And sometimes, but not learning the landscape can trip you up, right? And if we go to today, it's totally different now because a lot of companies are hybrid, right?
Yep.
Young people coming out of college, you know, they're maybe working 2 3 days from home, so they
Yep.
don't get a chance to go in and learn the landscape, learn
Right.
the etiquette. All right, when I
Mm-hmm.
was in the military, I had to learn the etiquette, what to
Mm-hmm.
do, what to say, how to stand, how to look, all those type things. Take your hat off when you come inside. Put your hat, all those things, right? So the same thing in corporate America. You want to come in and you want to learn the landscape of how to deal with your coworkers, how to navigate or communicate with your boss, how you learn stuff not just directly but indirectly, how you
Right.
build your brand. So there's a million things that you need to learn, but at the end of the day, you won't learn if you won't learn in terms of not being there or not being involved. So to me, that's the first part. Now, if you want to say that's part of surviving,
Yeah.
okay, all
Well, see,
right.
Tony, I've seen some people who were capable, young, and they didn't have any survival skills. And so what happened was, and I can tell you verbatim, I had a leader come to me and say, "Hey, why are we losing young talent? What is the issue?" Well, first of all, it's the young talent, and it's how you got to understand them where they are and how they see things. But more importantly, I sat through an orientation dynamic for new hires and interns and things like that, where a guy that was at a senior vice president position said to these young folks, "I see so much talent in it." And it was political, but these kids don't see it that way. "I see so much talent in the audience. One day I might be working for you." And they took that more literal than they should have, right? So they come in and they work 2 months, 3 months, and they like, when is the next brass ring? When is the promotion? When is the, I mentored a guy at 23 years old, making six figures. I'm thinking he on easy street, he got a good trajectory. He going to work talking about being a millionaire. And I was like, you in the wrong environment in a Fortune 15 company. Talking about you need to hurry up and be a millionaire. That takes time for that cake to bake. And so these kids come in entitled.
So
They come in and then they get disenchanted, and then they leave or they get pushed out because they get mad because I was told by him that within 3 years I could be his boss. Why the hell did you believe that?
I mean, but is that surviving? Is that just the expectations are not set in the right manner, right? It's
Right.
because you're right. There is a different level, of expectations, or you want to use the word entitlement, right? When I was coming up, you were just happy to have a job, right? You were
Yep.
happy to be there.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, you you did whatever people told you to do.
That's right.
Okay. And so
To
because
survive.
that was part of survive.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
so okay, you want to say survive, but at the end of the day, you want to grow in the organization, right?
That's correct
So
too. Yes, sir.
you were going to be tutored, all
Mm-hmm.
right, by people who've been there for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to show you the ropes. Now they don't always tell you, "I'm going to show you the ropes," but it's just automatically you learn from people who've been there for a long period of time, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had no expectations in terms of you're going to get promoted. You want to get your goal is to get promoted, but you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a time frame. There was none
That's
of that,
right.
right?
That's
The
right.
goal was I'm going to come in, I'm going to work hard, and they're going to know. Hopefully, they know my name, and I'm able to move up. That's as
Right.
far as most people would think. Okay,
Right.
so yeah, it is totally different. I just think that and just because somebody took it literally, okay, because
Right.
look, I've been in places before and people said that, "Hey, there's great talent here. So one of you guys, believe it or not, you guys are gonna, take over and you're gonna be leaders." I don't think we took it like, all right, next week, all right,
Right.
or in a couple
Right.
weeks or in a few months, we're going to do that. We just took it as, I don't even think, to be fair, I don't even, and again, I'm speaking for myself. I don't
Right.
even think that I even took it as, I just remember it was a conversation
Me too.
and I didn't even
Me
look
too.
at it as this is me, or this could be
Right.
me, or whatever the case may be,
Absolutely.
because you're
Absolutely.
100% focused
Right.
on doing a good job, right? That's number
Right.
one, learning your job and doing a good job. That's it.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And then from there, you get visions of grandeur and stuff to that nature. But
Right.
at the end of the day, you're getting a paycheck. You want to get
Right.
paid. Okay. You want to
Absolutely.
come in and you want people to say, "Hey, Chris did it. We like Chris. Or we like
Mm-hmm.
Tony. We like Noel.
Mm-hmm.
We like
Mm-hmm.
Michaela. We like
Mm-hmm.
them." Right. That's number one before anything else happens. Right. So I just think, I'm saying is that the survive thing, I hear you. Right. But I
Mm-hmm.
just think it's like learning how to navigate the landscape. All
Mm-hmm.
right. Because sometimes, to your point, the expectations are out of whack. Okay. And to your point, we've seen people want to leave after 6 months because they didn't get a promotion.
Right.
Okay. Or this,
Right.
I didn't think this was what I thought it was going to be. Right.
Right.
So I just think that at the end of the day, those are, I think that's more of a society, generational standpoint.
I do too. And so one of the things that's showing up in studies is the commitment or the patience that's being exercised by the Gen Z, the younger, folks, in the idea of the biggest investment that you'll make. Classically, of course, somebody's going to say a house, right? So that's just known. Big investment is a house, but your house, your car, your education, and your career. Like these are significant investments, but people are not looking at their career as an investment. And as you know, by investing in things, you get in early, you continue to put in on it, and it grows slowly. It's not hitting the lick, it's not hitting the jackpot, it's not taking these big wild swings and these big gambles. But people tend to want to do that more and more often recently in their career. They want to come in hot. They want to come in, be the supervisor day one, and tell you how they think it should go. And it's like, hold up, fam, we've been around for 100 years as a company. You come in all these bright ideas, and then you get frustrated and upset because we're not taking everything you say verbatim to the CEO. And that's what I mean by you got to come in and kind of, like you said, peep the scene, understand the landscape, see where you can fit in, and make it to the anniversary. Make it to 2 anniversaries. Damn, don't get to the point where your reputation is so disgruntled because you got all these ideas they're not putting into place and all this and that. And you have a lot of these younger entrepreneurs, these kids that are free thinkers, outside the box. Remember that became a thing. We want people to think outside the box and all that. Well, like you said, from a military perspective, y'all can't have a whole bunch of outside the box people in the Army. That's called chaos.
It don't work.
Right.
It don't work. Here's the thing, though, buddy. So
Yes,
let me
sir.
ask you this question:
Mhm.
How long does a job become a career?
And I'll give you my testimony.
Yeah,
My testimony was, like most people, I think it's in the high 70s now of people who don't have a role in what they got a degree in or went to school for, right? And it
No.
might be higher than that.
I get that point. What I'm saying is that how long does somebody have to work somewhere where they come in and have a job,
Right.
and then after a certain amount of time, they now have a career? What's the time frame on that? What do you?
Yeah, I don't know the time frame on that. I think that it's a matter of when you get in, it's kind of like a liberal arts education. You get in and figure out what attracts you and what you're good at. But as I was stating, you just want a job to start off with. You just want
that's
to
my
get in the
point.
door.
But that's
Yeah.
my point. So that's
Yeah.
why we have to understand the majority of people who start off, it's just a job.
Just a job.
It's not
Yeah,
a career,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So when it's just a job,
Yeah.
okay, you're not 100% sold on it. You're not 100%
Correct.
committed to it,
Correct.
right? So if they don't give you what you want, you're
Right.
willing to, because there's no investment yet, right?
Correct.
And to be fair, unless you a doctor,
Right.
or you a lawyer or something
Right.
of that nature, the majority of people who come into corporate America, they start off with a job.
That's
And
correct.
then after a while, navigating and you start liking what you do, and you
Right.
start liking the people around you, and then you can see an avenue of where you could go, and then it becomes a career, right?
And I believe that's when the thrive hits. But Tony, people aren't even giving it a chance. It's like a relationship with a woman. You got to get that a chance to mature and marinate to get to the point where you're willing to get engaged and get married. But you got people that's just hopping around from they dating everything because they so impatient.
But let me ask you this though. So again, all right. So it's easy to sit back and be like, they doing this, they doing that. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
When you graduated college, how many jobs did you have?
Just one job.
You
When I was
worked
in
at
college,
one place and you stayed there for years.
no, I left.
Okay,
I left
so
after a couple years.
you left when?
It was a couple years, about a year and a half, 18
And then
months.
what did you do after that? Was it in the same field?
No, it was in the
No.
adjacent field. No,
Exactly.
no, wasn't in the same
Right?
field.
And
No.
then you went, you see my point here, my
I
brother?
got you.
Is that at the end of the day, when you first come out of school or military, whatever the case may be, you don't know if this is going to be forever.
Gotcha.
Okay? That's why it's about learning and navigating, right? The main thing is doing your best.
Right.
That's the key. I've been at places where, I didn't, I remember I think I was at Travelers Insurance Company, right?
Okay. Okay. The
And
umbrella.
I was in the accounting. I was NCA accounting
Yeah.
clerk there or something.
Yeah.
It was back late 80s, right?
Okay.
And I
Okay.
remember was it senior director or VP, somebody? He
Mhm.
came to me because, again, I'm telling you, you come in, you work. I came in, worked hard. I
Yep.
wasn't thinking about, I want to go here, I want to go here. This was a job. Okay. It was a job at Travelers Insurance Company. 20,000 people worked there. It was
Yeah.
a job. Okay. And the bottom line is, I was doing such a good job. I remember senior director VP, he came by one day and came and sat on my table, my desk, and he said, Tony, you can make a lot of money doing this, right? Something
Right.
to that point. He
Right.
was giving me a pep talk, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, for real? He was like, yeah, you're doing well, blah, 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 right? End of the day, I wasn't looking for that to be my career. It was a job. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Right.
I wasn't looking to stay at Travelers Insurance Company for 20 years and move. Some
Right.
people did, right? So
Right.
my point I'm trying to make is that part, the first thing when you come into corporate America is you're coming in with the mindset. Number one is you want to do a good job. You want to work hard. You want a
Right.
good job. And then you want to navigate and learn the ropes. You may not stay there for a long period of time. Because
Mm-hmm.
here's the other caveat to that. What's the other piece to that makes it that decides if somebody's gonna stay or not?
So for me, I can tell you, I
Right.
started off at the State Farm headquarters. And when you said 18 months, I was there for 18 months. And let me tell you why. I get there and I'm thinking, man, these people are so smart. They dress so nice, all this, all that. And after about 6 months, them rosy glasses had dulled. And I realized these people ain't better than me. Like they not smarter than me. So I can compete here. And I
Right.
ran into a guy who happened to be a director. He telling me about his job, telling me about his role, telling me about his team. He's giving me all this information. I'm like, this is what I would like to do this. I would like to do this at State Farm headquarters, blah, blah, blah. Everything looks good. And when I said, how long have you been here? And he was like, oh, no, how long have you been director? He said, I just became a director 2 years ago. And I was like, okay. How long? Keep in mind, I'm 24, right? And I said, how long have you been at the company? And he said, 22 years. I was like, oh, I'm not waiting 20 years. Like in my mind, I'm a kid, right? I'm
Right.
not waiting 20 years to become just a director. You're like 3 levels above that. No, I can't even do it. And I end up moving to another company totally that I felt had a greater trajectory for me and my talents at that point in time. Because
Right.
like these kids I'm talking about now, I thought that I had more to offer than to wait around because I felt like he was very talented. I didn't know his whole story. In candor, didn't know his whole story. But that's the thing when you get to these organizations, you got to see your CEO, your executives, your VPs, your directors, managers, and then everybody else, right? It's the lower levels. That's just the corporate hierarchy, right? And he was only at the second phase of that. Like me and him was one level apart as far as I was concerned in the pantheon of how corporations run. And it took too
Right.
long for him to get there.
Right. Well, and again, those could be personal situations,
Yep, yep,
right? Who
yep,
knows?
yep,
He could have
yep,
been
yep.
somebody that wasn't a high performer and
That's
they
correct.
kept him on and then
Late
eventually he
bloomer.
turned it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So there's a million reasons,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But what I was alluding to was
Mhm.
a lot of it also has to do with, your boss.
Yeah,
Do you get along with your boss?
yeah, yeah,
Do you have a relationship with that person, right?
yeah.
Do you like working with them? Are they a good manager? Do they have your best interests at heart? Are they
Mhm,
helping you grow? Are you learning from them? So those
mhm.
are a lot of the other intangibles and why people either leave or they cut out, right?
Right.
And so I think what we should do here,
Mhm,
and again, like I said, we've come in, we have different experiences, but we have the same experiences, right?
mhm,
So if somebody new was coming in, they just
mhm.
graduated. Oh, well, let me just say this. The one area that I disagree with you on
Okay.
was when you said, hey, if you go to Harvard, they're creating leaders. If you go
Mhm.
to another school, I disagree with that because I
That's what
think,
they say, Tony. I didn't say that. Harvard said that.
no, well, I mean, look, they can say what they want to say, but I think you could go to University of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and I'm not picking
Okay.
on that school. It just
Right.
came to my head, right?
Right.
And graduate there and still
Right.
come in and be a leader. So one of the things is that when you go to college and you graduate with a degree, Okay. Typically, you start off, depending on the role, but a lot of times you start off in management. Okay. So if you don't have a degree, you ain't starting off in management. In the military, if you have a degree, you don't have to go to West Point. But if, again, you went to University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and you have a degree, you can start off as an officer. Okay. All right. Which, if you don't have a degree, you start off as a private. See what I'm saying? So by going, it doesn't really matter. You can go to any college and still come in and have leadership qualities and stuff to that nature. Or you could go to any college, or you could go to Harvard or Yale, whatever, and don't have no leadership qualities. Okay. I just think that it's I just think it's based on the individual, right? Yes, to your point, do certain schools, focus, on that you're gonna lead, you're gonna be this, you're gonna create this, you're gonna be an entrepreneur, you're gonna be a bit. Yes, I'm not saying that's not the case, but I just think that at the end of the day, you go to school, regardless of what school you got, you have the ability, and depending on what field you come in, you can have the ability to start off, and be able to move up into management pretty quickly. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
But it goes back to, life is a confidence game. Good, bad, or indifferent, life is a confidence game. And there's some institutions that reinforce that confidence. It comes, if you go to Notre Dame or Stanford or whatever, you come in with a different kind of scarlet letter on your chest of confidence that says they taught me to be better or to be a leader or whatever the case may be. And then you have situations where, like you said, you went to Podunk University, Spoon Valley Community College, and you have all these intangibles, but you have so much more to prove because your resume doesn't resound. You know what I'm saying? From many different factors, even and of course for us as Black professionals, from a pay scale perspective.
See, here's the thing though, bro. And this is where we get, and we're going to talk about imposter syndrome shortly.
Okay,
right?
cool. Yeah.
But this is where we this right here, this conversation we have right now, this is where this starts off with the imposter syndrome stuff, because we think people, because they went here, or they got this, or they have this degree, or they have this title, that they're set up and they're better, and they're not. Because at the end of the day, that all those things are great. They're great. But at the end of the day, human beings are human beings. There's people I know went to West Point scared to death in terms of, being a leader, don't even know how to activate. They're faking the funk because they still don't feel it themselves. They don't have confidence in them. It doesn't really. So my point is, and then, so a lot of times when we go to school, or when we start a job, or we're somewhere, and then we see that this person's got a master's degree or this and that, and they went to Dartmouth. Oh man, how I'm going to compete with that? Look, this is where we start piling on stuff that maybe at the end of the day, that's great for them, but that doesn't diminish you. All right. And that doesn't mean that they're, got it all together, because that's not true. Right. So I just think at the end of the day, we all have to look, and you said the word confidence. At the first thing you have to obtain to be successful in anything is confidence. Right. Would you agree with that? Right?
Absolutely.
And then, so how does that start? You could start you could be valedictorian. You could be on the dean's list. You could be, but then when you start this company, you don't have the confidence yet that you're going to come in. Sometimes you do, but then there could be times that you still feel a little insecure, or you don't think you rate well enough, or even though you went through all this type stuff, right? And which can affect you in terms of you being successful, at least at that organization. So I think one of the major things is coming in and, affiliating yourself with the organization, with your boss, with your coworkers, getting confidence in doing the job that they're asking you to do, right? And then from there, those qualities and all the other things that you were taught and stuff of that nature, most likely would come to the forefront. But I think for today, most people today, when they come to corporate America, right? Either, and you said it, I think entitlement is really the big thing that hamstrings them, because they have a sense of, even if they ain't confident, even if they're, trying to hold on, or let's use your word, survive, right? They still say, well, It's been 6 months and I didn't go from account executive to senior account executive.
Right.
All right. Or I didn't go from here to here. And that's the wrong attitude to have. The attitude to have is you come in and you work hard. Okay. Right. And you assimilate and you meet your coworkers and you make friends and you build your brand that way, right? Where other people in the organization saying that Chris, is he on your team? Tony, he's great. I love those little things are the things that help you build your brand and help set you up for promotions and opportunities, not some, invisible time frame.
I agree, but and we'll talk about this when we get to the imposter syndrome. Some companies have began to acquiesce and create these mid-level roles or these tiered structures to give people a vanity title or whatever the case may be. And so what happens is, because of social media, because of your network, your alumni network, things of that nature, you was first, third, fifth in your class, doesn't matter, right? And then you graduated with some people, and Rob went to this firm and you went to this firm. And then Rob, 8 months later, is saying, woohoo, they gave me the next, keys to the private bathroom. And you're like, hold up, I'm better than Rob. And that starts getting in your head where if you don't have anybody investing in you, or you don't have a corporate dynamic that creates mentorship or that helps you understand how things go here, you're looking at Rob's situation inappropriately and comparing your climb to Rob's climb or to whoever's climb. And I've had people talk to me about this a lot, where they said, hey, I went to school with this guy. All the guys I went to school with, they at these places, they making this kind of bread and they doing this and that and the third. And I'm like, a haircut don't look the same on everybody. You have no idea what else is going on there.
You
have no idea. You don't know the whole story. You just know the highlights. But unfortunately, that starts to chip away at a psyche of people, like a disenfranchised people, of people that feel like they had to fight extra anyway. That starts to chip away at them because they feel like, man, I got to the point where I had a little bit of confidence, got here, and they saying, stay in the corner, shut up and dribble, stay in the corner. And it chips away at you a little bit.
So I hear that, man. But this is where, again, I'm just going by my own experience. All right. Is, and I just came in and just wanted to do a good job. See what I'm saying? I mean, I didn't get caught up in all that. Okay. Right. And don't get me wrong. I've heard other people say those things, right? Oh, I've been here this time and this, I didn't get promoted but it wasn't 6 months. All right. I'm talking years ago. Right. So I've been a couple years, or they passed me up. I just heard those people and I just, that was their situation. Right. And to be fair, I've been in the advertising industry since 1997. Okay. But just to be fair, everything prior to that, it was no career. Those was jobs. All right. And so when you're working at a job, I'm just being honest with you. Now, all that being said, I got promoted at a lot of those jobs. Okay. But I wasn't looking to stay at those companies. Right. And so, I was always looking for the next thing, for making more money and stuff to that nature. But I wasn't looking like, oh, this person made this and I didn't. I was focused on what I can control. And I think that's where people want to be at. What can you control? You can control two things, right? Your attitude and your work effort. Okay. And by approaching that, 9 times out of 10, what I've always found out in my career, when I focus on my attitude and my work ethic, 9 times 10, everything worked out, right? All those things took care of themselves. But if I'm looking left and I'm looking right, and I'm trying to compare myself to all these other things, then guess what? I'm not focused on the things I need to be focused for me to become successful. Right. And here's the thing, though, too. The other thing where people miss it, and you said it a few minutes ago, is that success is not linear. Okay. Since you came in, did you go straight up like this? Or was it sideways, backwards?
A lot of zigzagging.
Exactly. Right. So it's not going to be that way. Now, there could be a few people that they go like this, but that doesn't mean it's meant for everyone to go like this. And you never know when they stagnate, or they go this, that. So you got to run your own race. You got to focus on you. Right. And look, there's a lot of things you can't control, that's out of your control. Some people may get promoted before you. Some people may. But here's the thing. You don't have to stay at a company forever. Okay? But if you work hard and you build your brand and you focus on that attitude and that work ethic, guess what? Some company will come and say, guess what? We'll take you. we'll get you. See my point here? And I
Right.
just think that's where we've kind of gone away from today because, like you said, companies are, hey, we'll give you this, we'll give you this, we'll give you this. And nobody's really worked at it. And then because they're getting stuff that they haven't put the work in, they're not ready. And this is where the imposter syndrome comes in.
Imposter syndrome is something that hooks many of us into an idea that we're not good enough. And by definition, maybe you've heard about it, it basically means it's a situation of an intellectual form of self-doubt where we start to really get in our heads, we start to worry that our accomplishments don't really measure up to today's standards. We feel a sense of underperformance, we feel a sense of self-scrutiny or worry that maybe we didn't deserve the spot that we have within an academic institution, for example. We didn't deserve our job, that if only people really knew the real us and they discovered that they would just be blown away at how bad we are. And a word sometimes that you could think of is like a wannabe or a fraud or a phony. And this is something that is a reality in today's landscape where it feels like it's never enough. No matter how much we accomplish, there's always going to be more to do.
So I think that that's heavy because I can speak for myself in the idea, and it evoked some memories for me where coming up and playing sports, it was easy because sports is a meritocracy, right? Either you win or you don't, and you're talented or you aren't, and it shows up on the field, on the court, or whatever the case may be. When I first got into corporate America, it was a situation where I got promoted quick, early, like boom, boom, boom. It was within a matter of 8 months, 1 year. Like I remember one time I got a promotion and I told the guy, I haven't even been in this position for a year. He fell out laughing, right? And so, but when I got to that corporate headquarters, I had a boss, and you talked about this earlier a little bit. You kind of touched on this. I had a boss that was not supportive in that regard. And she was so non-supportive and wouldn't have, for me, I felt like maybe the VP who put me in that role should have sold me better, or Buddy, like she should have known that I came under his recommendation, because I thought she did everything she could to run me off. I thought she did everything she could to make me feel as if I don't belong here. I was the youngest person on the team by 16 years. But my acumen, my ability was there until she kept chipping away at, like, it would be silly little things. But when you're in it, you don't realize that's what's going on. You think, because I've been coached by so many different type of coaches, oh, this is just her coaching style, I'm going to just far exceed that. I'm just going to show up and work harder, work harder, work harder. But I didn't realize I was negotiating against someone who didn't have the same destination as me. Like she didn't want mutual benefit negotiations to come out of it. I was negotiating against a bad actor. And it took for me in my young 20s to realize at some point, wait a minute, I think that she would take all my work up to, it wasn't until I think she was sick or some kind of FMLA or something, medical, whatever. And they had a replacement come in or somebody step in her stead. And the new person, lady named Nikki said, excuse me, you take that contract up to the seniors. You do this, you do that. You did all the work. And I was like, oh, that's never happened. I never was allowed to shine and thrive and get into feeling into that confidence level of my own, because this woman rejected everything. It was one point, I'm gonna say this and then we can move on just because it's tough with me. It was one point, Tony, that I purposely created a contract dynamic, presented it to her. She rejected it because that's what she always did. And 5 iterations later, gave her the original one and she accepted it. I was like, what are we doing? What are we doing here?
Let me ask you this though, bro. So that seems like more of, you just had a boss that didn't support you, but did you,
Correct.
from an imposter syndrome standpoint, did you feel like I can't do this job? Like they have me here and I don't really fit the bill. I don't, they're going to find out that I really don't belong here. right? Did you feel that way? Because it
I
sounds
felt
like
like it was
more.
something I must be missing. I felt like she knows she's in a lot of times also when you're young, you believe that these titles and these people have earned these spots. You don't realize how the corporation really works, right? You think that they got there because they did what they were supposed to do. Once again, that meritocracy. They did enough, they're smart enough, they're capable enough, they're in a leadership role because they're leaders. Not because everybody that's an individual contributor is not designed to be a leader. You have doers and leaders. And just because you're a good doer does not make you a good leader. And I found out later by some teammates and some mentors that was her situation. She was a good doer. And then she pushed back and told them she wanted the opportunity to lead. And I happened to be one of the guinea pigs. I happened to get into one of the roles where, hey, we're gonna kick the tires on her. And she didn't last longer than me. Let me put it like that. But the fact is, it did make me sit back and say, wait a second. I thought that I was this and that based off of, but maybe this isn't for me. Like you said, you get in there and you realize what works for you and what doesn't. And because she was saying so vehemently, this might not be for you. You're not excelling, and I had always excelled. So think about that too. When you've always excelled and you've always showed up and showed out, and then somebody in charge of you is saying, not good enough, not good enough. I thought it was a coaching dynamic where she wanted to bring more out of me, but it was just exhausting me. And that's where the imposter syndrome kicked in.
Yeah, but again though, so I hear you. I just think that's more of you just had a bad boss, right?
Right.
You know,
Right.
versus you getting up. So look at it this way: there's people who
Mhm.
get promoted into a position.
Mhm.
Okay, they don't feel like they are adequate to do that. Forget the boss.
Right. Right. Right.
Even if
Right.
the
Got you.
boss is
Got you.
supportive,
Got you.
right? They don't
Got you.
feel like I can do this, right?
Right.
They're going to find me out. They're
Right.
afraid to give reports because they
Right.
feel that if they give the report, it ain't going to look right, right?
Right.
So those type things, even though they have all the capabilities of
Right.
doing it, right? It's just like the professor said. And what was her name? Just so we can give her some love. Dr. Kristen Lee, who's the
Lee.
professor at
Mhm.
Northeastern University. Just like she said, is that they don't feel that they belong in this situation. And it's in your head, right?
Correct.
Now, the boss
Correct.
can make it worse, right? But it seems
That's
like in that
correct.
situation,
That's
there
correct.
was probably a person who just didn't like you or might
That's
have been
right.
threatened by
That's
you.
correct. Yes, and
And
both.
so, those, and these are all the dynamics that you have to deal with when you're dealing
Yep.
with corporate America, right? Is
Absolutely.
you're dealing with all these personalities and what other people's what their goals are or lack
Yeah.
thereof and their
Insecurities. Yep.
insecurities and
Yep.
all
Yep.
the other things that you got to learn how to deal with and try to figure out, right? But I think a lot of us, especially, and let's go to the next clip because she breaks down like what groups or who's mostly affected by imposter syndrome. Let's play the next clip.
Look at who is affected by imposter syndrome, for example. It happens in high achieving, high performing roles for folks, but it also happens to certain groups. It happens to people disproportionately because of race, because of class, because of gender, because of sexual orientation and age, and any of these other kinds of categories where sort of there are this in and out group situation or historic and current tide of marginalization, discrimination, and oppression. So it's sort of this whole thing of like a dominant group kind of came to this decision of what was good or what the metric should be, or sort of defining it for the whole, even though that doesn't always fit. Or also many times we have barriers to access in our lives, in our professional and personal lives.
Yeah, so you can see this is something that obviously high achieving people and one of the things when you look into it, people who are perfectionists,
Mhm.
all right, have imposters can be can will have imposter syndrome or could be
Right.
infected by it because
Right.
everything is not going perfect. So they
Yep.
don't think that they rate. Okay, they don't think
Right.
that they're on that level, right? I must not belong here because it didn't come out right. Okay, because they're perfectionists. So that's number one. But number two, the other things is as that like you said, marginalized groups, because what you're trying to do is you're assimilating into areas that you may not be familiar with, or you may not have a mentor or sponsor or
That's
somebody
right.
that's going to show you the ropes. Okay. And then now you got to stand up and you got to do it. And so you may have doubt. You may feel like, well, oh, and then 9 times out of 10, we just talked about it. You know, a lot of times you got to figure stuff out for yourself. So let me give you an example. I had worked, I got a job. I was the executive vice president of this company. And I had to, executive vice president of sales, I should say.
Mhm.
And I had to go once a month to a board meeting out in LA, meet with the investors and stuff of that nature, talk about, our numbers and projections and all that type stuff, right? I remember on the airplane, right? Flying there, going to LA, scared because I never did that before.
Mhm.
Okay. And can I really do this? Am I, they're going to look under the curtain and say, he don't belong here. Okay. And so there was a fear. There was a nervousness, right? Because I've never done it before. And then I was there. I wanted to make sure that I said everything right. I wanted to sit a certain way. I wanted, and here's the thing, I'm the only black guy there. Okay. So then you have to throw, as she talked about, you have to throw that into the equation. All right. So, part of me, and then let's be fair, it was, the numbers, the company wasn't growing like it should. So it's like, is this because of me? Is this? So these are the things, the self-doubt that you start dealing with. And I remember I was working with a life coach at that time. And, we would meet once a week and I would tell her what was going on. She was awesome. And she was the one saying, Tony, you're in your head. You know what I'm saying? You deserve this job because you were the best candidate. You had done a lot of this work. Yes, there's stuff here that you never done before, but those people that's sitting around the boardroom, they only know this because they've been doing it longer than you, not because there's some genius, what the case may be. So she was good in terms of pumping up my confidence and getting me out of my head. But those are the things that people will deal with when it comes to imposter syndrome. And 9 times out of 10, they are adequate enough to do these roles, but it's a mental thing. And a lot of times, because they don't have the sponsorships or the mentorships in terms of people, teaching you about these things and how to deal with and how to do these things. And that's what can happen.
But a lot of times when you're young, Tony, you don't have the discernment to know the difference between if it's a bad actor or if it's your lack of capability. So there's something called the Peter principle, right? Where you get promoted to your level of incompetence. And so for me in my situation, I was young to where I didn't realize until I got mentors, sponsors, people that invested in me to tell me it was in my head. Because what I was going by, what my leader was expressing to me was inefficient or incapable. And so I didn't discern that this was her and her inadequacies or her insecurities. I believed what she was saying verbatim because my entire career up until that point, I had overachieved. My entire career up until that point, I had been promoted and promoted and promoted. And I felt like, wait a second, did I finally reach my level of incompetence? Did I reach the level to where this is it for me? And I thought how I saw my trajectory, it was low. It was very low. And I was like, if this is it, I'm a buyer one and that's it. And I did all this damn school and all this other stuff. This is not going to work for me. But it took for me to be vulnerable and speak to people because I didn't grow up around a lot of learned individuals and scholastic, folks that had corporate. That's another thing. I didn't have a lot of corporate people in my family or in my life. And I had a lot of workers, not a lot of leaders that I had, close relationships with. So it took a lot for me when, like I said, when she was out and that woman came in, Nikki Barnes, and Nikki put me in her office and was like, you are extremely defensive. I mean, every time something is said, you got all these emails and receipts that you coming in. I was like, I was so, scarred at that point. And she gave me grace and told me, this is what you need to do. This is how you should be approaching it. Talk to this person. You're doing a great job. And that's all I needed. Just like any athlete, sometimes you just need somebody to believe in you. And then you can show up and show out and be who you naturally are. But I had this lady that was dimming my light. And I didn't realize that she was so effective at it.
Right.
And so that's when I was like, man, maybe she knows more than I. Maybe, it's something going on. And I tell this story all the time. And so, a year into it, she's my boss. She's the horrible boss. And I'm talking to my teammates and they're telling me that she has a degree in music. Man, what is we doing? Things started to be revealed to me that I was like, oh, this is her problem with me. This is this. And like you stated, ironically, at a corporate headquarters, it was 88 people on the floor. 3 of us was Black.
Right.
Nobody else on my team.
Right.
And so a lot of that was playing. I was young. I was Black. I didn't have a life. All I had was that job. So I was doing the hell out of that job. And that was another thing because I was pushing the pace. I was asking for more. I was winning awards and different things like that for the things that I was allowed to do, on a smaller level, but I never got a chance to get into those big projects. And I started thinking it was me. Once again, as we stated, you have to have someone to pull you out of it. Luckily, you had that life coach to calibrate you and bring you back to reality as opposed to get out of your own head.
Well, here's the thing though, bro. So sometimes you're not going to have somebody, right? And so this is one thing I had to learn. Yes, she helped. There's no question, right? But the thing is this, and this is one of the things we want to talk about when we talk about imposter syndrome. What can you do, right? Because yes, you definitely want to have mentors or stuff to that nature, right? You want to have people in your corner. Here's the thing though, and those are great, but one of the things I've learned in my life is what I call reference points. And I'll use you as an example. You just got finished saying, hey, I had been successful everywhere I went till I got here. Okay. So think about that for a second. I've always thought of that as well. Well, look, I did this, and this. Then I'm coming here, even when I started struggling in the beginning, because I'm learning something new. But I just knew I always lent on those reference points that guess what? I didn't know this and I kept doing it and I became very good at it, right? So this is no different, right? So those are the things you got to have your own self-talk, right? Yes, it's great to have people around, but you have to look at the things that you've accomplished in your life already up to this point. And those things that you accomplish in the beginning, you wasn't good at those things either. Okay. You had to learn how to deal with those things. And then you did, and you overcame them and you surpassed them. And then that took you to here. So that's the one thing when we talk about imposter syndrome, we have to take a step back. And number one, know it's in our head. And then number two, look at our prior accomplishments. Look at how we were uncomfortable on these other things that we had to deal with the first time, and we accomplished them. We beat them, right? And if that's the case, you can do it here. And then more importantly, recognize that the people that you think have it all put together, right? That they're on a pedestal and they're this, or they have this title and they're that. They don't. They 9 times out of 10, they're no different than you and me, right? And they got there, and you just said it. Once you start peeling the onion back, you find out that they got their own insecurities, or they didn't graduate where you thought they were, or they speak with a lisp, or they got one leg, or all the things that you may think, right? So that's where we have to really look at having people in our corner is great, but 9 times, and I'm going to say 9 times, sometimes you're not going to have that. You need to be able to speak out of it yourself.
I think for us, especially as Black people, you already have so many other things that you start feeling like this is just one more thing. It's piling on at this point, right? It's a situation where, as I stated, from my perspective, I was a star everywhere, and my teammates thought that I was a up and coming star, and it's happened at this job and another job, but at the other job, praise the Lord, I was more mature and I already came out the fog, and so I knew exactly what she was doing. Like, yeah, she hated me the whole time, and I could give a damn. Like, it was, I knew my numbers was this. I let the data speak for itself, and I carried myself in. I'm number one on the team, and I knew I was number one on the team, not just from a data perspective, from how the team was approaching me, how the team rallied around me. She didn't like that shine, and so therefore she and I bumped heads in that regard because she just couldn't understand why I couldn't humble myself more, why I couldn't fall back more, because I was trying to ascend and I didn't know how to balance that out to be aspirational and humble. Like that's a very strange concoction, right? Like either I'm on the gas or I'm on the brakes, but I can't be on both or else we spin in a circle. And so that was a tough situation. When have you found yourself in a career position where you thought that it was time and the other person didn't want to, you weren't releasable, or you were too much of a integral part for them to let you move on and grow?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all have situations where everything is not going well.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them, to be honest, was more personality stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that I couldn't do the job or I didn't think I could. It was just more of the people that I was dealing with, right? Because it can become a lot easier if you got somebody to support you, and it can be horrible if you don't, right? So that's really what it comes down to. But what we're going to do now, we're going to pick this back up in our next episode because we got more to talk about when it comes to, navigating corporate America. But final thoughts, my brother.
I just think that, like you said, it's something that you have to go back and check yourself and make sure that you are really basing this off something tangible as opposed to something that's just made up. Get out of your own head and speak to people who either work with you, care about you, that you have trust in, to make sure that you're just not making these things up and thinking crazy. But at the same point in time, you have to have realistic dynamics and goals, and you have to be willing to invest in what you want the ultimate outcome to be. And so that would be, one of the things I think could help as you're navigating these corporate waters.
Absolutely, buddy. Come in, work hard, be ambitious, get your head right in terms of expectations. Okay.
Yeah.
You're not going to get promoted in 6 months. Okay. I mean, if it does happen, I mean, that's great, but
Right.
focus on really coming in, learning the job, learning your coworkers, learning who your boss is, building that brand, and really making your mark in your work and how you do it and how you become an asset for the organization. And then you start focusing on the next steps. So listen, we want to thank everybody for checking out this episode, How to Climb the Corporate Ladder. So I think it's now time for
Tony's Tidbit.
Okay, so today's tidbit is by Robert Greene. And the tidbit is create a ladder of values and priorities in your life, reminding yourself of what really matters to you. And we kind of spoke of that today in today's episode.
Absolutely. Servant leader Robert Greene. But and also we want to remind you to tune in to Need to Know with Nsinga. Don't miss this week's Need to Know segment by Dr. Nsinga Burton, a Black Executive Perspective podcast where Dr. Burton dives into timely and crucial topics that shape our community and world. Tune in and gain unique insights and deepen your understanding of issues that matter. You don't want to miss it. Trust me.
No, you don't want to miss it, right? So again, hope you enjoyed our episode, Climbing the Corporate Ladder, Overcoming Barriers and Embracing Empowerment.
Absolutely. And then we also want to challenge you and invite you to our call of action. Remember to incorporate LESS, less. The L is for learn. Educate yourself on racial nuances and cultural aspects, and make sure that you learn as much as you can wherever you can.
Exactly. And then after you learn is E. E is empathy. Okay. Now you should be more empathetic to your friends and colleagues about the situations that they go through.
And then the first S is for share. Share the things that you learn. Don't hide it, divide it. Make sure that those around you understand what you've just gained and understood.
And then the final S is stop. We want to stop discrimination as it walks in our path. So if grandma says something at the Thanksgiving table that's inappropriate, you say, Grandma, we don't say that. We don't believe that. You stop it right then. So if everybody can incorporate less, LESS, we'll create a more understanding world. And more important, we'll see the change that we want to see because less will become more.
And then also we want to remind you to tune into the episodes, but go on to the website, sign up for the newsletter. Please leave your reviews and subscribe wherever you're listening to the podcast, and that'll help us scale and reach you where you are.
Exactly. And you can follow a Black Executive Perspective podcast on all of our socials, TikTok, X, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook at a Black Exec. For the co-host with the most, my man Chris P. Reed. All right, Noel Miller, who's pumping the muscles behind the glass and making this all work out. I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. We love you. And guess what? We're out.
a Black executive perspective.